fellow Munsters. Digger Munster here, and welcome back to the 8th continent. Yes, I did do a back-to-back because now I am addicted to this book. I don't know why. I just absolutely love it. But anyways, let's just go ahead and jump right in. As Keaton listens, his eyes dart from Father Hoskins to you, reading and absorbing every nuance. He is clean-shaven and without wrinkles. His eyebrows are flecked with gray, giving off the sense of unassuming wisdom. You tell Keaton that you intend to go firstly to the trade station, see if any word of your family's disappearance has reached the nearest market. Settlement. Okay. Okay. Silently, you wonder if, from there, you will end up traveling west somehow, beyond where America used to be, to where believers would say the 8th continent surfaced in the middle of the Pacific. That is all you know, he says finally. You know. Be careful, Keaton warns. A little way to the east there is a gang of brigands, whatever that is. They are avoidable if you take the old underground for a short section. You thank him for the advice. In all honesty, I don't think you should go at all, Keaton says. But I see that this is not something open to debate. The least I can offer is to guide you for a few days. Will you accept Keaton's guidance, or will you thank him but explain that you prefer... Okay, no, we're gonna go with him. There is no time to be wasted, Keaton explains. You both bid Father Hoskins farewell once more, Keaton having made arrangements for him to look after his horse until he comes back. It is with a clenched, pent-up need to get moving that you depart. When you come to the fallen library, you'd raided it for books in the early days. Keaton moves towards the old underground tunnels. Your dad always said, keep away from the underground whenever possible. Since Inday, nothing's been stable, and many quakes are still frequent. Getting crushed a mile from home would seem a bitter defeat. But Keaton seems to know what he's doing, and he warns against approaching the brigands in what is now a lawless world. Meanwhile, you argue that if they are nearby, they may know something of your family's disappearance. Let's go towards them. I ain't scared at all. Well, apparently he is, but I'm not. Before you see them, they see you. 6 disheveled and mean-looking brigands are gathered in a bus shelter across the street. Both men and women comprise the group, though they are identical in their expressions of grim malevolence as they approach you. You are relieved that Keaton is by your side. The steadiness of their stride suddenly falters when they notice Keaton and his clenched metal gauntlets. He is the first to speak. Listen, vermin, I tracked you earlier today, saw what you were up to. I have no qualms with dispatching your sort here and now. But you're lucky. I'm in a hurry. If you value your lives, you'll answer my questions and then move on. They seem paralyzed with fear, 6 grown men and women against you and Keaton. After a few minutes questioning, it becomes apparent that they know nothing of your family's disappearance. Finally, one of the men forgets himself, saying with a rotten-toothed grin, if we had them, we'd have taken them north to the chasm. Big bounty for that stuff. Keaton seems to tense up as the man steps towards him. At first, they don't even seem to process what's happening, but from nowhere, Keaton lets out a fearsome war cry, striking down the first brigand, who falls like a sack of potatoes. The other frees momentarily before moving towards their attacker with faltering steps, forming a semicircle. They appear to be getting themselves into a position to retaliate. One of them says something, another argues, but their formation is already broken. Suddenly, 3 break into a full run in opposite directions. 2 others, both women, move to pick up their injured and groaning comrade from the floor. In seconds, they have fled into the invisibility of the ash drift. Keaton lowers his fist as he comes close to you. You see that the fire still burns in his eyes. You are safe for now. You've barely left your front door, and already the perils of the wasteland have made themselves apparent. Already, they have taken their toll on your body. Okay, so basically it's telling me that I need to take care of myself. Do you ask why he attacked, explaining that there was no need, or do you congratulate Keaton for dispensing justice? I will congratulate him. Keaton soon puts out a hand to stop you, though you can see that he appreciates your gratitude. It was nothing. They were nothing. He turns to face you. I'm more worried about what you'll meet when I'm not around. He looks towards the east, out there, in the wilderness. I can carry myself okay, you say, uncertain of the absolute truth of this. Though I suppose it depends what I'm up against. Who taught you to fight, Keaton? Will you explain where you got your fighting skills? Or will you ask him what sort of enemies you can expect on your side? I'm going to explain where I got my fighting skills. How you learn to fight. Suddenly, you were smiling. Every morning, 5 days a week, your dad pulled you from your bunk for combat training. Your father's routines filled the day of the first year under the cloud. Combat training was one of your father's routines that you actually enjoyed. He'd managed to find several books on the subject of hand-to-hand combat, including an instructional pamphlet on kickboxing, a training book on karate, and a tattered non-fiction book called Street Fighting Through the Ages. But what ended up being just as useful was the stash of combat cards he found while scavenging one day. As a young kid, you played the old card game a bunch of times, but you'd never thought that combat cards would actually serve a real purpose. Not until you noticed that each card had a section that explained how the move was carried out in real life, kind of like a bit of covered learning for the kids. These instructions helped you learn. Whenever you found a combat card in your travels, buried in a drawer in a crushed house, stuffed under a sofa, and the remnants of a family's game cupboard, you knew what the next morning training was going to be. Not that it had always been as easy as that. Neither of you had been natural combatants in the early days. You learned together, sparring as the As the Sonic? Oh, I don't know. Because I don't know if it's one word or two. Because there's not a dash in between them. Out the best dawn it would muster through a maze of gases and ash. It was fun. Dad rarely talked of when you'd ever have to use the skills you honed together, instead repeating vague dogmatic sentiments about the importance of preparedness and the transferability of mental and physical discipline. It didn't take much of an imagination in this new, broken world to consider why you both may one day need such skills. Knew there was more to your dad than his brains, Keaton laughs. So, you say that you learned a little of all of these styles. But which did you like best? Okay, we're gonna go ahead and look at the karate one. The hook kick wouldn't be bad. Let's check the street fighting. Okay, so this one is the one that I have now in my second playthrough in the second book. So I'm gonna do this one because I like the Street Fighter. Plus Street Fighter. Too much Street Fighter, huh? You laugh. You always had enjoyed fighting video games, had spent hours developing the finger memory to execute the special moves. Isn't street fighting just mindless thuggery, though? Keaton asked. Not in the least, you say, rather more defensive than you had intended. It's the most fascinating of styles because it really has no rules. Keaton steps back in mock fear. That sounds a little cold, Morgan. Forget it, you say, a little deflated. Let's get going. Yes, Keaton says. You're back to him now. We can go, right after we've determined who's the ultimate combatant. You spin back around. He is already lowering himself into a somewhat personalized position of combat readiness. He's serious. You're both laughing. Readying yourself, you say, Keaton, the gauntlet? He looks down at his studded, shining metallic gloves. No rules, I thought. He laughed once more. No, a little time-consuming to remove, I'm afraid. Don't worry. And he winks. I won't hurt you. Okay, time to see how well you remember those old moves. We are going to save. Right there. And let's see if we can kick Keaton's ass. Well, I have more health than him, so if I don't kick Keaton's ass, I'm going to be very upset with myself. So first off, I was going to say we can give him the old 1-2. But we're going to do the flying kick first. How does he hit me when there's no attack? Okay, that's fine. Then we'll give him the old 1-2. Then we'll do that. And his ass is not done yet. Alright, fine, I'll give you the old 1-2. Oh, I wussed out. What? I didn't mean to do that. The 1-2. There we go. Die! Hey, I am the best. Win your first bout. Okay, I won at fisticuffs. Because that's what they call it. Keaton thumps his hand onto the dusty ground where you have him pinned. Time out, kid. You cannot help but issue a little triumphant whoop as you move aside, and watch Keaton brush himself down, shaking his head. He's chuckling now. You don't go easy on a guy, do you? You slap him on the back, a puff of ash rising from his jacket. Maybe next time, eh? Keaton straightens up. Okay, for that display, I reckon you've earned a little tuition. The master becomes the student and all that. Want me to show you the throw I did? The one that was so ineffectual when I tried? It would be good to know another move in your repertoire. Will you let Keaton? Will you instead change your fighting mechanism? Okay, I'll let him teach me. Keaton asks you to throw a jab at him, and a split second later, you're eating ash on the deck. You turn inside the attack. See? Keaton says, acting it out again above you. While you slowly get to your feet, he's saying, after you've seized their arm, you pull them down, using their weight and momentum against them, and then you pull up their hindmost leg to help them on their way. Smooth as you like, bang. It is a tiring few minutes, and you find yourself on the ground, wincing in pain more than a few times, but it pays off. Soon enough, you've learned the Yaratama throw. Shut up, Facebook. Next time someone tries to hit you, instead, they're not going to know what hit them. Thanking Keaton, trying not to limp too much on account of your dead legs, you suggest that it's time to leave. No more said, the raw meaning of affable brawling foregoing talk. You move eastward once more. For half an hour, you progress across the rubble is good. Your progress across the rubble is good. The ash drift never more than a mere tiresome distraction. The terrain its usual draining, demanding self. You try to hold the faces of your family in your thoughts, as if by doing so you will stop them slipping away from you, stop them being lost forever. It has become clear that to you at last they are long gone, and finding them is going to take every shred of determination that you have. But soon questions are crowding into your mind. You realize that having Keaton with you is a major resource. One that you must not squander while he is still accompanying you. Who knows when he'll have to leave you? What do you want to ask him? Who do you think would want to snatch my family? How do you know my father anyway? What do you know about the 8th continent? Where can I get some more stuff? Saved! Who do you think would snatch my family? Keaton shakes his head sadly, crunches over a glittering puddle of shattered glass, the remnants of a shop front, someone's livelihood. It's very hard to say who took them. There are disorganized gangs of brigands, not unlike the ones we've already encountered, who have an interest in taking hostages and extricating hacker resources. But from what you say, they wouldn't have been capable of such a clean strike. He sighs, which suggests that we're dealing with some larger enterprise. You look off to the horizon, at least giving yourself some imaginary distance from this painful thought. You mean like a criminal organization? Keaton coughed slightly, his throat sounding dry. There are no criminals in a lawless world. Perhaps some distant faction with some objective unknown to us. Perhaps your father said the wrong thing to the wrong person, or maybe someone found out about your dad's brain, wanted to make use of it. It was so easy to forget that your dad was a respected biochemist, that he had had a long line of publications and awards before he gave it all up. Perhaps on one of his excursions he ran into someone. Okay. How do you know my father? Anyway, yeah, let's not start. Keaton allows a smile to crease the corners of his mouth, glancing sideways at you as he does so. Your father and I are old friends, older than all of this. Keaton's gauntleted hand waved through the air, gesturing at the desolate landscape, sharp, polished knuckles catching the light. We studied together. He was working on his first doctorate on animal cells when we met, and I was doing a mere undergraduate degree in, what was it? Environmental science? I never finished, he chortled lightly, briefly, but we were young men, at large at university here, in London. Okay. We had a time of it. It is difficult to truly enjoy such reminiscences, warming as they are, they feel too much like remembering someone who has died. Instead, you asked, have you worked together since? No, Keaton says, lips pursed a little. We rather drifted, I'm afraid. Our lives trod different paths. It looks like the end of the world to us, to bring us back together. Oh, it took the end of the... Why can I not read? You recall Dad telling you about the day he ran into Keaton, a survivor, the first survivor they'd all seen in weeks, and lo and behold, an old friend. It had been the first time your dad had laughed in months. Indeed, for day afterwards, he'd hardly been able to get over the sheer luck of the thing. Do you want to converse further? Where can I get some more stuff? Keaton sniggers a little at this, then negotiates a low, crumbling wall, hopping deftly onto it, and jumping down the other side. You just loaded up on Kit, kid. You want more? But you don't answer him immediately. You don't answer immediately, because you have noticed something on the wall in front of you, bloated and scarred at the edges, but only scratched and stained in places across the surface of the wall. You can see the remnants of some strange picture. Little bears dressed in matching football kits. Against the once bright blue sky, the cartoon bears slide and jump for the ball, which floats balloon-like and impossibly high away. Their tiny limbs are thrown out in simple enthusiasm, their smiles perched beneath their button noses, as the elusive ball is repeated again and again like a dancing metronome across the replicated pattern. At the far edge, one of the bears is warped, split in half, and sagging, where the amateur wallpaper layer couldn't quite march up the strips. Some child bedroom wallpaper. You never had the posh sort of stuff. Only ever got the plain stuff. Lucky lad. Keaton has turned to face you, and he's holding out his hand. He clears his throat, his voice softer now. Let's get to the trade station. You can get all manner of things there, kid. You take hold of his hand and slowly clamber over the collapsed wall of some unknown lost child's bedroom. What do you know about the 8th continent? No! Excuse me. Even as you ask the question, you trip on a loop of metal, the uncoiled and ragged wire of a collapsed fence snagging at your skin on your shin. But Keaton lunges out to catch you before you fall. The 8th continent? Keaton laughs, still holding your arm and looking searchingly at you, a slight smile diffusing across his features. You're a believer, then. For a long time, no one had even known what had caused N-Day, had been too tied up in surviving to really care in my case, but then things had settled. Life had recommenced, albeit for only a select few, and albeit at a state altogether more savage. People began to talk, surmise, reason. Travelers from other places, Europe and beyond, began to arrive with stories of their own. And once it was commonly held that had been a super eruption, people began to wonder, what happened to all that magma? I know nothing, kid, except that if such a place existed, it would be the promised land, a place of dreams. Letting go of your arm, he stares off towards the west for a moment, as if by doing so, he could catch a glimpse of that imagined new landmass, somewhere halfway across the globe. I also know that it's less a question of if the place exists than one of how you get there if it did. You trudge onward in silence. What now? Conversation has left you with more than enough to think about. The path through the collapsed buildings and multifarious ruin twists and turns, but it is easy to pick your way through. A trail has worn itself into the settled debris. Like those who used to commute into the city eastward, now the footpath takes any who wish to get to the trade station to find work, goods to sell, or perhaps simply better luck. Indeed, you are sure that the horse hoof prints that you occasionally spot in the settled dust are those of Keaton's steed, traces of his journey out a few hours ago. Then, a cloud of dust, a sudden burst of sound echoing off the angular slabs of broken concrete, voice is raised. Turning, you see that somehow Keaton is already hidden amongst the fang-like protrusions of a nearby crushed garden shed. He is waving you over urgently, wordlessly, imploring you to take cover. Will you stay in the middle of the path and wait to see if anything is coming? Will you duck down behind a nearby van, concealing yourself entirely behind a crushed... Okay. Let's take a look. Okay, sorry, I had to scratch my eye. You scramble behind the mangled skeleton of the battered vehicle, but soon enough, you've got your elbows planted on the dented roof, and are trying to focus your binoculars on the disturbances up ahead. A breath of dust drifts over you, scraping and scoring the exposed metal of the van, but you continue to peer through the bins. Then you see it. There is a sudden flicker of movement. and for a split second you see something that, though it is gone quicker than it appeared, is scored on memory like glare on a retina. The silky creasing movement of some kind of creature, some kind of worm-like monster, curling into the dusty oblivion. For a moment you wonder if what you saw was out of focus, the scale of the thing and its flexing bloated movement almost insect-like. Keaton is by your side. Without taking the binoculars from your eyes, your shaking hands making the now empty image for their tremor. You hear your voice as if speaking from miles off. What was that? I don't know, Keaton says. Let's take a look. Before you can protest, Keaton is striding toward the dissipating ash cloud, towards the now featureless patch of ground. Pausing there, he examines the area, peering from side to side. Besides the endless ruin, there is nothing remarkable. A moment later, he turns back, shrugging, but just as he moves, his foot seems to catch on something on the path, something pulling him to the ground. You step away, hand held out in horror, then stumble, your aghast mouth open in silent warning. But then you're falling hard onto the ground, scrambling backwards, which got hold of Keaton. And Keaton is starting to laugh, picking up something decidedly inert from the floor. Keaton is smacking the clumps of clinging ash from something now in his hand, and he's laughing hard. You're still sat on the backside, and Keaton is holding a grubby, heavy-looking leather suitcase, while he just dies with laughter. Once you are restored at your feet, and your embarrassment is also lifted away, you both take a moment to consider how this item got left here. There is no one nearby, no footprints in the ash leading to or away from it. It is as if whoever dropped this case was lifted in the sky or swallowed by the ground, somehow removed without a trace. You wonder what's inside. The only visible marks are the large sweeping curves of dust where the wind had dragged the ash drift into the miniature dunes. Keaton suggests you take the suitcase and then examine its contents once you're a little distance away, but you could insist that you search it here, where you found it. I'm gonna listen to Keaton on that one. Yeah, I'm gonna listen to Keaton. After you've gone a few feet and skirted the amassed wreckage of what was once a public toilet, you feel safe to put down the case. Besides, the thing is too heavy to take any further. A hefty Durlock was bolted to the front of the case, an advanced electronic locking device that you've seen enough times to know is nearly impregnable to brute force. Hacking past its systems is the only way around. Keaton presses a battery from his pocket before pausing, laughing quietly to himself. What, you ask? We're lucky, he says, nodding at the case. This Durlock has its own power source. We don't need a battery to hack it like you normally would. You ping away the Durlock's protective casing, revealing the circuits underneath. You punch your knuckles, and you crunch your knuckles and take a deep breath. Time to try out your business. Bruh, don't even worry about it. I got you. I got you. Alright, I hate these so much. Okay, so it's not... Let's see here. Down, down, down. Down, down. Da. Oh, sweet Jesus, where is it gonna go? I don't know where I'm going or what I'm doing, but I'm worried now. The only way I can get it to hit anything is from here. But it's not possible. Oh, I could have done it. I messed it up. Hold on. Yeah, I entirely messed that up. Because I'm stupid. Okay. Well, now it's just redid itself. I saw, like, right as it was over, I saw where I had to do it. Go away. Got him! With a sudden beep, the lock whirs, then clicks open. You're in. The suitcase is filled with all the kinds of detritus that gathers in a survivor's kit bag as it comes close to outliving its usefulness. spent batteries, food wrappers, and crushed drink cans, torn rags, crumpled paper, broken tools. Nevertheless, there could be something of worth here. Sam, I got you. Don't worry about it. I'm gonna do this. Okay, we're gonna go there, and holy shit, it's already doing it on its own, so I don't really have to do too much. Could you guys stop? Like, no one likes me. Why is this happening? Money. Alright, there it is. So I would have continued going to find stuff, but once you find the actual item, it doesn't let you find anything else after that. Amid the refuse, you continue across a worn and dusty business card. Who is this Titus Lane, you wonder, and will his business card get you a discount at his store? Happy with you're fine, you decide to be on your way. Just as you are about to leave, you spot something on the ground beside the suitcase. It looks like a scrap of paper, and you almost dismiss it, but something compels you to stoop to pick it up. It is just as well. You have found a special creature-specific combat card. This one's called Man's Best Friend. Should you face any type of dog in combat, you will be able to use this special combat card. It teaches you a simple sleight of hand and turn of phrase that will give you the chance to pacify an attacking canine and leave it open to your calming pronouncement. Useful indeed for a budding dog whisperer like yourself. And while this combat card would be of no use against other types of enemies, it is just a ticket should you face Man's Best Friend. You follow Keaton along the path. Nice. No. Leaving the suitcase behind, you trudge on eastward. The terrain alters from the acres of heaped rubble that represents what was once part of London's eastern suburbs to intermittent ash-swept flatlands of choked public parks. Walking through so much desolation lays a heavy weight upon your heart, leaving you and Keaton both morosely silent. This notorious side effect of the road is what seasoned travelers have come to call the end-day drain, but foreknowledge of the phenomenon doesn't stunt its psychological effects. Suddenly, you notice an odd rhythmic squealing sound piercing the silence. It has crept up on both of you, oblivious as you are in your somnambulistic trudge. You flash a questioning look at Keaton as you both instinctively duck behind a toppled telephone box, eyes on the road ahead. Continue. You emerge from behind a telephone booth, smiling. You can see now that the peculiar squealing is emanating from nothing more than the unoiled front wheel of a tired-looking barrow. It is being pushed slowly along the path by an equally tired-looking boy of perhaps 10 or 11. The child gives a start, dropping the barrow, and causing its meager contents to leap under their tarp covering. Keaton quickly reassures the child that you mean him no harm. A few snatched sentences, very quickly establishing that he has seen nothing of anyone. Okay, so for the family. He is simply returning from the trade station. Grubby but lean, with a quick smile, the boy nods at the barrow. I've more or less run out of stock, but there are a few articles that might still be of interest. It seems, Keaton says, turning to you, that we will do a bit... Okay, so we're gonna go shopping. No, we're gonna go shopping. I'm gonna take this off. Do I need bandages? I do need bandages. Okay. I'm gonna take one of those. Do I have anything that I can sell? Absolutely not. Okay, we're going to move forward. Keaton offers a warning about the dangers of traveling this road, even in the day, but the boy appears entirely unconcerned. Bidding him farewell, you leave the squeal of the wheelbarrow behind you. Then, another distraction. Its front end partially crushed under a heavy fallen tree a few feet away stands a large motorhome, Moreover, it is something of a deluxe model, all of 7 meters in length and standing dormant and flat, long since perished tires. Nevertheless, it is the only near intact vehicle you've seen since leaving the bunker, a miracle on the otherwise ruined street. Yet, you can see how it has come to escape the brunt of Inday's cataclysm assault, for the vehicle is in the middle of the vast, clear, expansive driveway that belongs to the evidently once grand, now collapsed townhouse. I thought it was townhome. The falling tree has the vehicle pinned where it is, perceptibly lifting the rear wheels off the suspension. The tree is the only reason you imagine that the thing hasn't been driven away by the owner, or whoever else comes by. Further back, the buckled steel garage door promises untouched loot, its concrete lintel wincing under a weight of fallen masonry piled heavily on its bending roof. You notice that the digital display of the coded lock is still lit, brightly asking for its 5 digits as if Inday never happened, asking for 5 numbers you don't have. You'll have to hack your way through if you want to get in there. The house nothing but wreckage. You wonder if the camper, or perhaps the garage, will yield anything to help you on your way. We're gonna hack the vehicle. I'm horrible at hacking, but we got to do it. It's got to be done. And, okay. No, because it needs to be that way. Okay. The mechanism squeals in protest as the metal door inches up and folds imperfectly into the damaged housing. But you're in. The crushed garage is half its original height, and you have to remain crouching and sidestep inside. A thin string of powdery ash trickles like drool onto the back of your neck as you stoop under. The space is shrouded in darkness, except where, in the middle of the oil-stained garage floor, a pool of light gathers. There is a hole in the roof. As your eyes adjust, your nostrils fill with the still cloying odors of this once regularly used space, the heavy rot of cut grass clinging to the underside of the lawnmower, no doubt tucked away in some cobwebbed corner, the acidic tinge of spilt petrol, the dusty sweetness of cut and drying wood. Then your gaze falls onto a wardrobe hunched against the far wall to your left, the top of which props up a sagging slab of concrete roof. So used to seeing the vestiges of the past reused in unfamiliar context. You only later realize with a twinge of vicarious nostalgia that the wardrobe was probably an old piece of rejected bedroom furniture that was redeployed here well before Inday, the husband's new utility space, the father's. This is not post-Inday ingenuity. It is the remnants of a former existence now over. But has anyone stashed anything here since? I will scavenge. Because, ow, why not? I got this. I didn't need to save. I was contemplating saving, but I was like, honestly, it's not going to be that hard. So, what's done is done. Yes. Nailed it. 10 out of 10. Fabulous. I got this. Don't even worry about it. I'm gonna find exactly what's in here. I'm not even worried. Why did I do that? Why am I doing stupid things? I'm doing stupid things! wardrobe is brimming with the I lost health, which is shadows shapes a plethora of items, but the only thing that captures your interest is the shining coiled heap of a gold chain. You guess this metal will. Oh wait, I only got 5 hack for that. Are you serious right now? Hold up, get out of my way. Oh, okay, I got a lot more than that. I was gonna be so pissed. You guess this metal will be okay, the 5 hack, and then you see that it is wrapped up with a crumpled piece of paper, which warrants closer examination. As you close the wardrobe door, a string of dust drifts through a stray beam of light, which emanates from the nearby hole in the roof. Suddenly, there is a thundering groan, like the predigestive gurgling of a stomach about to be fed. The concrete itself is heaving, readying to tumble. Just then, you see the bowing plank of the wardrobe as it snaps. The heavy concrete roof inching downward, suddenly reminiscent of a gravestone laid on its back, as if ready for engraving, but now is not your time. With a sidestep, you are squatting in the neat round hole of light that pours in through the torn roof, and just in time the whole garage collapses, a vast cloud of dust thrown into the air, shrouding you momentarily. You have escaped death, have only been caught by a few stray fragments pinging painfully into your flank. Covered in ash, you step from the rubble, wondering where to go next. Check the camper. The flimsy door at first sticks in a jam, but then pings away, shaking the camper van on its suspension a little until your weight stills it. Inside the space is bathed in a bright yellow light that, sandy and granular, pours that into crevices, dissolves shadows. The motorhome is a single living space divided into 3 sections. The first, at the far end of the van, consists of a large double bed sprawling across the whole of the front end. You can make out the white spiderweb of shattered windscreen that slopes down to the crushed bonnet that you notice from the outside. The bed is unmade, and peeking from beneath it, you notice a series of worn packing boxes. What promises to be the front line of a parade of tightly arranged boxes of paraphernalia that disappear deep and under the mattress. In the middle space, what you guess is the shower room door hangs ajar, while opposite of the kitchenette, grubby but clear, still has a pool of stagnant water in the sink. You snatch up the chocolate bars that lies carelessly on the sideboard almost by reflex. Tomorrow's dinner. This place is lived in. How recently is difficult to know. To your right, as at the tail of the van, there is a makeshift desk made up of what seems to be twin workbenches propped up an old door. The whole improvised table is festooned with papers. Looking closer, you can see that the whites and grays and blues and beiges are those of a patchwork of maps several layers deep. And what gives the van its ancient yellow tint, not to mention its musty, weighty atmosphere, are all the maps that are pinned, taped, hung or tied to the windows and the walls like some kind of traveler's wallpaper. You have stumbled into a cartographer's domain. Whether he or she is still living here is anyone's guess. Will you search under the bed? Will you examine the desk? Or will you be on your way before you are caught? I think I'm gonna get caught either way. So let's just look at everything. Oh my god, no one cares. Okay, let's do this. So we got that, and we got this, we got that, and we're gonna be pro of the year here, and we're gonna do this, and we're gonna do this, because that was fantastic. Battery, lots of batteries. I am enjoying these batteries. Okay. Let's do this. That was done on its own. We're gonna do that. Let's see what we can get here. Well, there's more hacks, and I'm okay with that, because there's going to be, if I remember right, there's something coming up later on in the book that's going to cost a lot of money. Oh no, I didn't grab the sweet in the top right, my bad. You ransacked your way through a dozen boxes filled with any manner of miscellaneous rubbish until you catch sight of something folded neatly, flattened at the bottom of the last box. Pressing it out carefully and unfolding the flattened sheet of the delicate paper, you see that you have discovered an old OS map. It is detailed, covering the part of the city north of the Thames. You couldn't have wished for a more relevant map given your current location. Moreover, the map having been buried under this much detritus, you are sure it is of no value to the owner and will not be missed. You have no qualms in taking this item, which to you holds such value. I will examine the desk. You move across the Latin desk. On top of the pile of maps is one that you see now is only partially complete, finely drawn lines of anonymous coastline slipping off the face of the world, mountain ranges left hanging mid-soar. The paper is thick and luxuriant, stiff and unfolded, and the drawing is meticulous. Such precise work in such a humble setting. But this, evidently the map maker's latest project, rests amid layers upon layers of other finished maps. Some are well aged, as limp and smooth as layers of skin, while others are damaged or grubby, as if snatched from a burning building on end day, or rescued from some distant battlefield. Moreover, many of the countries and continents are familiar. Those lost, pre-end day contours of the Earth's crust, now permanently changed, forcefully renegotiated, when every plate shifted and every volcano erupted just a single year ago. But you also find maps of fictional, fantastical places, Narnia, Mordor, Wessex, and other that you've never heard of, but you suspect are nothing more than factual hallucinations from an ingenuinely fevered cartographer's mind. Then, a torn and muddied aerial photograph, whose title remains scrawled on a torn piece of masking tape, The Eighth Continent. You lift it up to the light, squinting at the curving quartile of land, the flanking stained blue of the sea, the ripped edges where the rest of the photo is lost. Is this photograph confirmation that the place truly exists? Or does it position among so many fictional and lost geographies, confirms that the eighth continent too is just another myth? The coastline here could be anywhere to your untrained eye. Unsure of what the existence of this photo means, your rapture is nevertheless undiminished. You found an article surely of tremendous value, one way or another. Time to be on the way. Alright. As you open the door to the caravan, you squint into the fiery orange of the descending sun. From here, looking west over the jagged relief of the far street, the row of houses horizontal lines like broken needles of a comb, you see Keaton's stationary silhouette. Let's get going, you say. Then you hear in reply, what, before I've had my innings? Dazzled, you take a step back. You are sure that what you heard was not Keaton's voice. And then you watch as Keaton's shadows seem to divide into two. Shading your eyes, you see now that there is another man standing beside Keaton, holding your friend by the throat with some kind of weapon held under Keaton's jaw. What? He asked belligerently. We've had a single over? As your eyes adjust, you see Keaton's captor. He is a rather feeble-looking man, of perhaps 70 years, with frail gray wisps of hair and weak limbs that shake his skin, and is shrunken and papery in his grubby, moth-eaten regalia, what looks like old cricket whites. In the light, at first, it is possible to miss, but then you see, most shocking of all, that the man is almost entirely covered in tattoos. Pale and faded blue ink covers his flimsy, wrinkled skin, crawls up his arms, envelopes his hands, creeps from his neckline, grasps his face like a shadowy projection. Under Keaton's chin, the tattooed old man holds a battered-looking cricket bat. And you've just looted this man's home. You feel weak at your knees. Continue. Recognizing that you can see him now, the old man's voice drops to a whisper. You want to go before I've even had a good old swing. Then he is barking venomously. Hand over whatever you've taken, thief. It is difficult to make out Keaton's expression in this light, but he certainly looks neither amused nor particularly desperate. It's possible that he is simply waiting for his chance to strike, but is hesitating given the advanced age of his assailant. While the man looks by no means dangerous, you've been warned about the strength of the insane. It would possibly be unwise not to take him seriously, for even ignoring the tattoos, he has a deranged look about him. Give me my things, he shouts. A cricketer, an obsessive skin artist, and quite probably a maniac. What will you do? Um, I'm gonna give him his photo back. Oh shit, my mind is really down there. I like to have everything up. There you go. Slowly and with the solemn dejection of the reprimanded teenager, you hold out the strange aerial photograph. The man drops the cricket bat and snarling snatches the aerial photograph from your hand. Stepping away, cradling the torn sheet to his chest, like a mother with an ailing newborn, he glances back at you fiercely. You just saved your friend's life, he whispers, the tattoos on his face, pale shaky lines, stretching and bunching in angry clenches. The man then steps forward, retrieves his bat, and tucks it under his pale arms. As he steps away from Keaton, you realize how much smaller he is than your friend. How much smaller even than you, shrunken with age and seemingly burdened with something else more philosophical, though no less weighty, standard post-end-day drain or some other brand of disappointment. His head lowered, still smiling in some kind of amused boredom, he shouldered past you, muttering, "Call yourselves bandits?" It seems he is happy to simply let you leave. You wonder why he seems to value the aerial photograph so highly. You despair at losing something of such apparent worth. We ask if the photograph you gave back is a new landmass, or will you attempt to excuse yourself? I'll talk to him. A new landmass, he says, voice muted and distant. Oh, yes, and it's newer than anywhere else on Earth. He holds the photograph flat to his chest, smooths out its wrinkled surface, as if stroking a beloved rare cat. It's one of the collections of aerial photographs of the eighth continent. You hear Keaton guffaw, turn on his heel, taking a step away, but the old man continues. This photograph is one of a series that were taken. A reliable source acquired it for me. You do not want to know what it cost me, more than Hack could afford. But I have it now. Now I need the others. So it really exists. The eighth continent. You find yourself muttering. The man doesn't answer immediately. He holds the image still against his chest. I had this photo burnt on. I had this photo burnt into my top right shoulder in case anyone like you came along to try and take the original, he says, and the rest of the blank space, theirs for the rest of it. The other photos I don't have yet. Now, I'd have to be crazy to do that if it wasn't a real place, wouldn't I? You decide that faltering his logic may be unwise. What will you say next? Ask him if there's a possibility that he's seen your family. Ask him about his tattoos. Will you ask him what he's doing here? Let's we can talk to him. When he grins, the tattoos on his face shift and shrink, his skin wrinkling like cloth on a pull-string bag, and he says, I make maps, and there is always a need. See, land hasn't ever been anything but a whole bunch of rock rafts floating on a volatile sea, especially now. He pulls the sleeve of his shirt up to the armpit. That's why I've got the new. Oh my god. That's why. Oh my god. No. Go. No. Okay. He pulls. Okay. That's why I've got the new world printed onto my skin. The new map won't outlast me. The way things are, the way things are changing, the Earth's skin shrinks and sags and puckers up just the same as mine does. The man is wincing a madman smile, and he's gesturing for you to look at his exposed arm. Keaton says, Well, I never, the UK. He shakes his head, but not as you know it. Never will a cartographer have more work to do than after the apocalypse. The old maps might as well be Narnia and Mordor for all they're worth, though I have to say I still love them. He laughs now, pulling his shirt out at the back, turning around, still talking over his shoulder. I got a lot of places down pat already, if the truth be told, running out of body. But he says, turning his back to you, there's one part of the world I really want the goods on. His I don't know what that word is. Torso is awash with faded ink, but now you can see a large patch of blank skin from shoulder to lower back, an O-shaped gap in the tapestry. To one side of the blank area, burnt onto the skin above his kidney, in the middle of the curved calligraphy of waves, you read the words Pacific Ocean. I'm heading north soon, looking for more aerial photographs of the eighth continent. Told told there are some to be found here and there, for those who are looking. You nod, smiling, and then jump backward as the man pushes his bat out to you. Handle first. I won't be taking this butte with me, he grins. You take it. You're a good kid, and I'm guessing you're going to need some protection. Ask him about his tattoos. What? He says. What? He says momentarily, seeming genuinely confused. You've never written something on your hand to remember? His laugh is a death rattle that ends in a wheezing anticlimax. Some people's work leaves them with crow's feet and less hair, he explains. Mine has had a much more fundamental impact on my body. Anyway, it can't hurt to have a second copy. A backup? Suddenly, you notice that Keaton is laughing as well, and for a moment it seems that the cartographer isn't as crazy as you'd first thought. Perhaps the tattoos themselves made it harder for you to read his facial expressions. Maybe you couldn't see past them. It's time to go. The man is smiling now, and Keaton looks at you with an air of impressed surprise. It seems you've managed to bring this man around with the skill of a negotiator. He waves a finger playfully in the air. Before you go. A riddle. Keaton is smiling no more, and for a moment you consider simply walking away. You've a family to find, yet you consider this man's wavering temperament. You don't daren't risk anything now. What always runs but never walks, often murmurs, never talks, has a bed but never sleeps, has a mouth but never eats. He stands looking at you intently. How will you answer? Okay. What always runs but never walks, often murmurs but never talks, has a bed but never sleeps, has a mouth but never eats. I'm gonna say a river? Oh, I did it! The man emits a kind of strangled wheeze, which finally breaks out of itself and transforms into a brand of stunted laughter. Yes, that's it! An old favorite! He seems to consciously let his face fall and for a serious air to take hold once again. A river, and there's one ahead too, a river. Out there in the mudlands that they call the cement flat. Keaton takes a step closer, says, We know, and we know of its dangers well enough. You wonder why Keaton didn't share this particular insight with you earlier, but he ignores the frown that you flash in his direction. Instead, Keaton says, It's low tide at this hour. I've always considered the way across via the northern route. Following the old train tracks is best. You wish to tell us different? That is the most popular route, which is why I never use it. No, I do take the railway line, but only for a short while. I walk and I look north. The moment I see the spire of the St. Mary's Church, I cut through northward. There's a concealed path. It's easier, less risky, and there are fewer people, fewer bandits. Why are you telling us this? Keaton says. The old man steps away then, slowly turns his back. The sun casts orange crescents across the westward flank as he drifts towards his caravan. Almost out of earshot, he says, This you ask of a man, then turning smiling, who stains the world's routes onto his very skin? Keaton turns to leave. Time to be on your way. It is dusk as you move once more onto the dusty road. The motorhome far behind. I'm sorry this is so long, by the way. I didn't expect it to be. The motorhome far behind you, you trudge onward, the cracked tarmac and heaped rubble of people's homes. Nearby, the acres of ash-smoothed ruin that stretches into the distance forms a heavily silence between you and Keaton. Keaton doesn't even notice. Keaton doesn't even take notice of the crumpled sign, half buried under ash. As you slog onward, you stop and crouch, clearing the clinging filth. You can make out what it says, West Middlesex Golf Course. You recognize this place. You've been here before. You glance around the shattered landscape, hoping for a cumulative familiarity that can sometimes follow a chink of recognition. To the north, an army of blunted, raised pikes that are burnt trees are all that's left of the nearby woodland. Rows of heaped debris, each pile caped with the brushstroke of faded orange tile, is what remains of the Moorland Gardens housing estate. You remember that once, when you were really small, your your dad brought the family dog here just before a holiday. There was a boarding kennels place years ago, a lifetime ago. Funny how remembering something also takes something away from you again, afresh. Keaton notices that you've stopped, and so you tell him where you are. Keaton congratulates your deductions. Well done, Morgan. That means that we're on Uxbridge Road, you say. I know. Keaton laughs, impressed. Up a little way, we're going to hit Brent River. But you correct him. It's what was once Brent River. We are now on what was once Uxbridge Road. Keaton looks at you worriedly. seem searching for something to say, but you have a question that you have been itching to put. Okay, to put to him. What do you do, Keaton, when you're not escorting your friends' children to? What do you think about that guy back there? How do you cope? Um, You had expected Keaton to be surprised, even offended by your question, which is partly why you have not asked him before now. But as you utter the words, his expression brightened minutely, but before folding into the grave air of someone burdened with heavy responsibility. He looks off into the distance, not in embarrassment, but with something of an air of ceremony. What do? I am working on something that I hope can help all of us. When I say all, I mean no less than the human race. I was traveling to your bunker in the hope that I could ask your father to be part of it, to ask him again. You've asked him before? Keaton gives a wry laugh. Many times, Morgan. He is a stubborn man, but he is also an ingenious one. And I suppose, you say, faltering, you cannot say any more about what it is you're working on? There is little enough to say anyhow. We are few in numbers, and it is early day. He looks back at you, smiling warmly. But we have high ambitions. It is never too early to start mankind's long journey back to prosperity. You consider prompting him a little more, but you get the sense that he has said all that he is willing to on the subject, and that he is not a man to be successfully drawn out further. Besides, you are reassured. You are being escorted by a man with ambitions to help the world, but who is also willing to put the safety of one individual, you, before the entire goal. Ask how do you cope with all this destruction and loss. I don't really care to read that. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. What do you think about that guy back there? He stares at you momentarily, eyebrows raised. He's making a point, though you are not exactly sure what. You wait for him to back up the gesture with words, but he says nothing. I take it you think she's wrong about the 8th continent. Keaton shakes his head. He gave you his precious cricket bat to make you a willing participant in this fallacy, to gain your approval. In times like these, luxury is dead. Children are denied all comforts, but perhaps the most cruel loss is their fairy tales and myth. Father Christmas, the Tooth Fairy, and yes, the 8th continent. But you are not a child anymore, Morgan. Put it out of your mind. In that broken man, you have seen where such a misplaced hope takes you. It's not okay. Keaton's sudden passion surprises you. You've seen fervor in places you believe. Okay, we will look at this. Keaton examines the weathered scrap of paper. I recognize this area. It's the other side of Brent River. He points to the area marked the fires. Well, we'll be coming from here. We'll take the left-hand path through Turnpike toward the mound. You stare quizzically at your so-called guide. I don't want to point out the blinding obvious, but have you noticed that it says "Don't go here," Keaton? Keaton brushes your words aside. It's fine as a group. Don't worry. What about the footbridge, or maybe climbing the cliff? Keaton shakes his head. Options, I suppose, but the bridge takes you to Titus Lane country. Best avoided, and the climb is dangerous without a rope. Keaton's mind is clearly made up. You fold your map away. Okay, that is the end of this episode. Holy crap, that was long. Okay, I hope you guys are enjoying this. I really do appreciate you guys' patience with this, because I really enjoy it. But I'm not going to record again after that, because my voice is going out. Because I've been talking for 2 hours straight almost. So I'm going to go ahead and end this episode here. So thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. If you guys like this video, hit that like button for me. And remember, when there's a shout, the monster's out.